From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos postgame reaction podcast, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. The Toronto Argonauts, the Cardiac Canucks, coming back once again from the verge of season-ending death and find a way to get a win, this time in another improbable fashion. Maybe not as improbable as the one on Labor Day. That was still bananas, but this one is right there. The Argos win 31-30 on a field goal from Lirim Hajrullahu for 48 yards as time expired to beat the Edmonton Elks in a game where they had 6 turnovers. They were only able to force 1 against the Elks, and that never, ever turns into victory for the offending team in football, and it did today. We'll get into all that stuff. Plus, we've got radio replays from TSN 1050. JB and I will break it down. My name is Ben Grant. Before we get into anything else, JB, we went to Something in the Water today. You had the Farm to Glass Pilsner, and we've talked about this a lot. I love Longboat. To me, I think everyone that goes down to Something in the Water, you've got to try Longboat. Is your favorite beer on tap the Farm to Glass Pilsner?
Yeah, I think so. I had one last time. I don't remember what it was called. It was really good. Once we finish this podcast, I'm about to go back there and imbibe with a little more commitment. But yeah, right now that Pilsner is my favorite.
It's pretty sweet. You can't go wrong with Something in the Water Brewing. I went with some hop water because I was going to be on the air today, and so I didn't want to start my day with a pint of beer. But that was, you can't go wrong. You whatever you get, whether it's non-alcoholic, whether it's one of their seasonal beers that they're always walking out with new stuff. There are a couple down there right now that you can try that are fantastic. And of course, Longboat, which is the beer that was made for you, for fans of the Double Blues. The next time you're in Liberty Village, check out Something in the Water Brewing. They've been a great sponsor for us over the last few seasons, and you've got to go see why. We won't stop talking about them. They're awesome. Before we get into our analysis, JB, here is Mike Hogan on TSN 1050 with our radio replays from today's big win over the Elks.
Julian with another high bringer of rain. And it will be caught by Justin Grant at the 10-yard line. Stutter step 15-20, going up the numbers 30, cuts outside 40. He's got the 45, he's got the 50, and he's tripped up at midfield by the kicker. It was the third-string quarterback that saved the touchdown in Edmonton on a missed field goal return. But Justin with a bomb of a return into the territory of the Elks. Javon Leake does have the one catch for 16 yards. That's really the only break against the running backs. 5-man rush. Fajardo spins out of it, but can't spin out of the second one. He got knocked flatter than one of Uncle Buck's pancakes, and it'll be third down for the Elks.
Yeah, I knew that reference.
Nice. They send 5. Arbuckle steps up in the pocket, eludes it, goes long. He's looking for Polk again. Diving, and he got that one. He gets up at the 20 and is taken down. A diving catch by Mackay Polk, who may have landed on the football as he gets up slowly. That one worked big time. 3 receivers to the boundary, 2 up top. Arbuckle drops, 4-man rush. Steps up in the pocket, rolling, throwing to the end zone, and it is caught for the touchdown! Who else but Jake Herslow? Another touchdown against Edmonton, his third in 3 games, and the Argos are right back in this. It's 14-9 with the extra point to come. 3 receivers to the near side. They'll be joined by the back and Unger. They're going to look this way, throw it, and it is caught for the 2 points. There's a flag on the play, though. Unger gets the reception, and we'll see what the call is.
That's going to be pass interference, I think, against Morganson.
Pass interference, Edmonton, number 43.
There you go, it is Morganson.
Convert is good.
They've got a tight end to the left side as Fajardo drops, has some time, flushed out of the pocket now, steps up, and down he goes! Second down and 9 from the 30-yard line. 5-man rush, back to pass Arbuckle, steps up, throws long, looking end zone, contested catch is made! Herslow took it away again! His second touchdown of the game, and the Argos cut the lead to 4.
Again, lots of credit to Nick Arbuckle. It was a bad snap. He caught it with one hand, fully extended, brought it in, saw that Hajrullahu had the speed to get by, even though he wasn't open yet. His defender had about 5 yards at him at that time, but Hajrullahu was making ground. Arbuckle threw it up to the perfect spot, and Hajrullahu, leaping into the corner of the end zone, made that catch right where the grass turns to turf, and the Argos are right back in this game.
Second down and 13. Argos in a 40 front. They send 3 and then bring somebody from depth, and they get to him. Ball's out! Ball's out! And it's rolling around, and it's picked up, and the Argos are going to score! Andrew Chatfield! Everything that could go wrong for the Elks on that play did, and this game is tied. The Argos finally get a turnover, and it turns into points of their own. Wow! Back to passes Doege. Throws the football, and it's going to be caught! Juggled and caught at the 43-yard line. Mackay Polk, what a great throw. A little teardrop by Doege to drop it over the defender. I thought that was going to be picked, but it's a first down Argo at the 42. Ball on the right hash mark. Brown is in the backfield to the left of Doege, who drops back. It's a 4-man rush. He steps up in the pocket, floats it, has a man at the 47-yard line. They're in field goal range. Doege makes the throw. Brissett, for the second time in as many games, a huge catch in the last minute of play. And the Argos, with 35 seconds left, are in field goal range. It would be a 53-yarder. 47.5 yards away from the goal line. Just inside the right hash mark. Snap is good. Hold is good. Kick is up. Kick is long. Kick is good! Hallelujah! Hajrullahu! Argos win! What a gutsy win for the Argonauts! Incredible come-from-behind victory! And they are now tied with Montreal for second place in the East.
All right, JB, let's get into it. First thoughts. This was another game that I know we're overusing it now, but as you once coined, was drunk.
Yeah, I mean, much like the Jays these days, they're the kings of the last second theft.
It wasn't a game that ever really felt like the Argos were out of, and yet it didn't really feel like they were in it either. They trailed from the get-go. Edmonton went up 7-0, and the Argos were always working from behind. Even when they were able to cut it to 3 at one point, Edmonton came down and scored another touchdown. And then suddenly something clicked. Again, it's in the fourth quarter. They went into a fourth quarter with a 2-score deficit for the second game in a row and came out on top, scoring 17 points in that final frame, 17-6, outscoring the Elks in the fourth quarter. This, you can't keep going to this. You can't keep winning games like this. Is not a great strategy season long to do this, but they're getting some of the bounces they didn't get in the early stages of the season. And I think it does show some heart to be able to fight back through adversity and get a win like this when Arbuckle wasn't playing well.
No, I thought it was one of the worst first halves I've ever seen them play. I don't know what Coach said to them at half, but they came out in the second half a completely different team, and played that second half incredibly well. So it was great to see them kind of snap out of their bye funk or whatever it was in that first half, where there just wasn't anything really going on for them. But it was anyways, I'll let you go. I got a couple things to jump in on.
Okay, well, let's start off. Let's talk about that first half. Only 3 points for the Argos in the first half, 28 in the second. There was there's a laundry list of things that went badly, things I had a problem with in this game, and yet they're sort of overshadowed because it was such a dramatic win, and a lot had to go right down the stretch. But let's talk about that first half. The defense, I found, played pretty well this game. I know they let up 30 points, but hear me out on this. Every single Elks point except that last field goal came off Toronto turnovers. Every single one of them. 27 Elks points came off turnovers. The defense, they completely erased Justin Rankin except for 2 plays. One was a bust on Edmonton's first touchdown of the game where it looked like McManus, Judge, Dozier kind of all got their signals crossed. They obviously had a plan for them, but each of them thought the other was going out into the flat with Rankin. He was wide open for the touchdown. Other than that play, he had a 15-yard run late on a pretty important drive, but everything else was bottled up. One run, one bust on a pass, and he had nothing. He ends up with 27 yards, but until the final minute, he had nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it was my one thing come to life. I mean, it was incredible to watch. I mean, it was really frustrating on that bust, but everything else was fantastic. You know, they absolutely dialed in on him and took him out of the game. I agree with you. I thought the defense played really well. I mean, Arbuckle tried to give this game away. He was actively playing against the Argos. Those were some terrible, terrible turnovers. And, you know, he nearly buried them. As well as he has played this season, this was not a good Arbuckle game.
No, it was as bad as he has looked since the first 6 games of the season. This was one of those performances that goes somewhere in there where he just wasn't taking care of the football. He still had 2 very nice touchdown passes, but those 4 interceptions.
And the poke pass was gorgeous. He moved up in the pocket beautifully, which is not easy to do because there were guys flying all around him, and just put it, pretty close to Poke. Poke made an amazing catch, but, pretty much on him. But I don't know what he was thinking on some of those triple covered throws he made for picks. And he shouldn't be throwing those deep outs to the far side of the field. He doesn't have the arm for it. I think those are really hard throws. Like it's just way too easy for the defense to be over that. There were some really bad decisions from him. He did not. Not to belabor it, but it wasn't a good game from him.
He was forcing the ball to Hajrullahu, and I think 3 of those picks came trying to get the ball into Hajrullahu, who just wasn't there. And I think some of Arbuckle's problems in this game, he ended up 21 of 31, 261. That stuff sounds fine. 2 touchdowns, that sounds fine. But the 4 picks, obviously, is not so fine.
And there were some back-breaking picks, too.
They were crushing.
At the worst time.
And they turned into 27 points.
Yeah.
So
believe me, I had a full head of steam on the Arbuckle train that got quickly diffused at the end of the game.
The thing I think is that Arbuckle's had a lot of success in the last 7 games, and really it's the 6 before this, because this is a whole different Arbuckle than we've seen over the last 6. Over the last 6 games, a lot of his success came on plays that weren't necessarily the right read. They weren't necessarily guys that were open. I see what the coverage is, so my guy's going to be open, I'm going to fire the ball. A lot of his big plays came on plays where he just trusted his receiver to go and make a play, even if it was an ill-advised throw. You could argue that the Dejan Brissett catch last week was one of those, and even earlier in that game, the touchdown that was called back against Brissett, he probably shouldn't have thrown either of those balls, and yet one was completed for a touchdown, one was completed for a huge, biggest play of the season to Dejan Brissett, and so he was getting rewarded with that. BC Lions played to Jake Hajrullahu a couple of weeks before that. He has found a way to throw into coverage, and yet his receiver will make a play for him. And today that just wasn't working. A couple did still. Hajrullahu still made a couple ridiculous catches, but yeah, one of the picks was thrown into a cover 3 where all 3 guys were back. There was no real shot at it. Another one, there was a guy coming from inside. There was a guy right all over Hajrullahu. And it was just from the word go, this was not Arbuckle making great decisions. It was plays coming back to, I guess the mentality, the philosophy coming back to haunt him a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game. He'll have to, and I don't know what happened to him because I wasn't watching the broadcast. I don't know what happened at the end of the game. Whether he got hurt. So I don't know what's up with that.
What I saw from Nick Arbuckle in terms of the injury, and again, I don't know really any more than you do, but it was on Toronto's last drive. They were driving down the field, and it was after a completion. Arbuckle threw this pass completion, and I looked back to him, and he was hobbling around, trying to walk off what looked like a foot or ankle or something like that. But he stayed on the field and continued it. and I didn't think too much of it. The next drive, I didn't even notice that Jarret Doege came out onto the field, because who would be expecting a change at that point? And Arbuckle wasn't taken out of the game for injury. He stayed in. But clearly whatever it was starting to get worse, was starting to seize up. And like in that situation, if you're taking your starting quarterback out of the game with the game on the line and you need a game-winning drive, that means Arbuckle's injury is pretty significant. It means he couldn't move at all, because otherwise you're going to put him out there.
Yeah, no, it's even with the sort of piling on, at the end of the day, he still is the quarterback. I think you want him in and not Doege.
That's not us.
Yeah, and he wasn't pulled for performance. I don't think it was like the 4 picks that he was being pulled for. I think,
I mean, he could have. I mean,
he could well have been,
they
but
certainly
no.
would have been well within their rights. But I mean, when I saw it, I thought that was like, wow, that is a bold decision. But I think injury makes more sense.
And Coach Dinwiddie has shown patience with his starting quarterbacks over the years. He will let his guys go back out there. There's been a number of times where we thought, why are you bringing this guy back out in the second half? But he's gone with him, and he's shown that loyalty. And so it would have been very unusual in that situation, especially with the game on the line. I don't think there's any way he's taking out Nick Arbuckle for Jarret Doege unless there's something serious going on, which obviously there was.
Like, I think the Argos still, I still think they need to run the ball more. I know they're not a running team, but I'd love to see them work in a few more runs. Obviously, if you're dropping back to pass, 31 times, like that's a lot of times. But there's stuff to clean up. But I thought the defense, like you say, I think it's a little misleading. I thought the defense played well. I thought they got after the quarterback. I thought the secondary tackled well. There were a couple of plays that they need to clean up, but on the whole, I would give the defense one of their better grades. I thought that they faced really short fields, but there were a couple of times that they absolutely had to hold Edmonton to a field goal and not a touchdown to keep the game in reach, and they did that.
And as much as I always will defend Coach Dinwiddie, because like I've said on this podcast many times, I believe he is the best coach in the CFL. There were a couple of things that he did today that I was scratching my head on, both that we've talked about before. One was the refusal to quarterback sneak on 3rd and 1 twice, ending up in turnovers on downs. And it's the style of play. I don't mind. You don't have to run a quarterback sneak. Now, I prefer you do. Arbuckle converted 2 of his 3 quarterback sneaks, and the only one he didn't convert was 2nd and 1, where you're not necessarily selling out the same way. So Arbuckle can quarterback sneak. Doege, I think, is 1 for 1 on the season for quarterback sneaks with a touchdown, and yet twice in the first half, on 3rd and 1, they ran a slow developing running play out of pistol. And pistol means you've got your quarterback back 4 to 5 yards. You've got your running back behind him. And it just takes so long to get back to the line of scrimmage for 1 yard when you know the defense is sending a man through every single gap. You're just not going to win those most of the time. And that is my continued frustration. I can't stand seeing running plays from that kind of depth on 3rd and 1. They're low percentage, and we saw today they were 0 for 2 on it.
No, I don't think this tape is going to be sent to the Hall for his Hall of Fame application. I did, like, they did it the once and and then the second time it was really more like inches. It wasn't even a yard.
I know.
I mean, it was literally inches. You just have to fall forward, and you had already been stuffed once in a scoring position. I thought that might have, scared him from that strategy for the rest of the game. But then he handed it off to the running back, and then threw away his challenge on a spot that was never going to be overturned. It was just, it wasn't the greatest 6 minutes of Argo football.
And that's my second point that I was going to bring up that you've done for me, the challenge. It's a challenge that I think, he's looking at that replay a number of times. He probably is correct.
He definitely is correct. There's no chance
he didn't get those inches, right? But
you
we know,
to get
how many
in the
times
backfield. to lose if you're 3rd and inches.
Yes, and he wasn't. And he was spinning forward. Like I think there's no way the ball didn't cross that line and get forward progress, but you got to be able to see it. And over the years, there's been so many Coach Dinwiddie challenges where, yeah, technically he's right, but we know as soon as we see him throw that, we're like, oh, like you're right, but you're not going to win that challenge. And a spot of the football, especially one in the middle of an offensive line, knowing that there's not a down-the-line camera angle there, is just not going to be one. Like if this is in the Grey Cup and you got those 5 extra cameras there and you know you've got one elevated down the line of scrimmage, maybe then you can challenge it because you can see for sure. Because I'm sure the guys up in the booth from height, they were right at that same spot on the field. They were probably saying, look, it's 100% he got the first down, but you've got to be able to see it.
But it's not challenge. It was not a good challenge. And it almost cost them because there was a PI late that he would have loved to have had a challenge for.
It was 100% pass interference. We're talking about the final drive. Jarret Doege launches one for Jake Hajrullahu, and there was no question about it. It was tough for the officials to see. I get why there wasn't a call on the field because it was inside, but Hajrullahu definitely had, was that Ford he was against? I don't remember who the DB was, but he had him by the collar. He was holding him by the collar, forcing him to the ground, and his other arm was even tied up. And so Hajrullahu only had one arm to try and catch that ball as he was going to the ground. And when they showed the replay on the scoreboard up here, the crowd went nuts because you could see full well that is obviously pass interference. And my question on that is, where's the review center? Where's the replay center buzzing in on an obvious incorrect call? I know they've shied away from that.
I will say this: I'm going to give the command center a pass for a couple of weeks because they did not call back the scoop and score touchdown, and they easily could have, and they knew that they might tear this stadium apart. And command center, that was the right choice. I'm sorry I've ever said anything mean about you. You have a free pass for the month of September.
Let's talk about that scoop and score, and maybe we'll get into the second half a little bit here. I'm looking at the scoring summary, and it is like when you have a 30-31 game, it is a busy page. In the second half, so again, they go into the locker room with 3 points scored. This Argonauts offense that has been putting up 30 points a game for a long time now, and they only get 3 at the half, still end up with a 31-point game. So you know it was bonkers in the second half. 28 points scored. A 2-point conversion in there, which again I didn't understand. It turns out that was a pretty important 2 points at the end of the game. But I hate that. That was their first score of the second half. It was at that time would have been 14-10 had they kicked the field goal. They decided to go for 2 to make it a field goal game, 14-11. I can't stand that decision. I know it worked out. They got the 2 points. They won by 1 point. So clearly that was a huge difference. I hate going for 2 until it is your last touchdown of the game. That's when you save it for. You take your 1. This is such a weird game. You get singles and all sorts of strange stuff happens. You don't know what position you're going to be in at the end of the day. Early in the third is not when I'd be going for 2 points. But credit to Coach Dinwiddie. He got it. And Arbuckle made a nice read there. He saw that he had Ungerer lined up on, I think it was on Morgan. It was a linebacker. And that's a huge mismatch. They drew the flag, got the 2 point anyway. So it worked out. That was a huge 2 points, but that's another one of those plays where I'm like, oh, coach, like I'm there, like I'm on your side, but that's not a decision I would have made. That was a weird one to me. And then through the second half, they end up that was their only touchdown of the third quarter. They added a field goal, and then into the fourth, they get that touchdown to Jake Hajrullahu in the back of the end zone, a diving touchdown catch on what looked like a perfect throw. And
gorgeous throw.
Oh, beautiful pass. He hung in the pocket, launched it from the 30-yard line, but that ball went about 47 yards, I guess, down the field. It was in the corner of the end zone. And Hajrullahu had to catch that ball right where grass turns to turf in those final 5 yards. It's just a weird place, and I was waiting to see that ball come free just because it was in tight coverage. It was a diving catch, and Hajrullahu did an amazing job. There's something about him against the Elks. He's played the Elks 3 times and has 4 touchdowns against them. They never want to see Jake Hajrullahu again.
I know. And he did score the first Argo touchdown, just not the first touchdown.
Yeah, I know. Your bet not quite coming through there. Mine was nowhere to be seen. I had Dejan Brissett scoring the first touchdown of the game.
Well, had they not done that third down, from distance, short yardage. I was on my way, I feel, to the Hajrullahu touchdown.
We will never know. We will never know how that one would have ended. And then let's get into that defensive play that went for a touchdown. Just a massive play. To go back, what was the time left in that game? It was late stages. The Argos were struggling. They turned the ball over yet again late in the game. And you're like, man, I think they're gonna run out of time here. And with 3:34 left in the game, is a 2nd and 13. Fajardo dropped back. I think it was just a 4-man rush. And he ended up getting kind of tripped up by Aaron Casey and Derek Parrish in the process of trying to wrap Fajardo up, punched the ball free. Andrew Chatfield picked the ball up on the ground and had the sense, had to know, and this is way harder to do than you probably know unless you've been in that position. It's so tempting to jump on the football. When you see the football there on the ground and you know there are guys around you, it's so tempting to jump on the ball because most of the time that's the right decision. Just recover the ball, turn it over to the offense and see what you can do. But in that situation, knowing it was 3rd and 13, at worst, if something happens and you lose the ball, Edmonton's going to be super deep and it's going to be like 3rd and 25 or whatever. You're getting the ball back. And knowing that the offense had also their struggles that day, Chatfield assumed that he could get there, and he was correct, scooped it up, ran into the end zone, and suddenly, after being behind the whole game with 3:30 left, the Argos are up by a single point. And, this place just went bananas.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like I said, it was pretty, questionable in terms of you definitely did grab the quarterback by the foot. You definitely could have called roughing the passer there, but it was a great play by the defense, and they deserved a break because they had played so well all day in terms of holding Edmonton when they needed field goals, holding them to keep Toronto in the game until they were able to mount a comeback. The defense deserved a break, so I was really happy to see that.
I thought it was the correct no call because the way that rule is written up, that low hit roughing the passer, it results from you diving at the quarterback's legs, and that's not what I thought Aaron Casey did. Like, he didn't dive at his shins or at his knees or anything like that. He wrapped his ankles. Like, he kind of pulled him down by the ankles. You're allowed to do that even while he's engaged in the upper body. It's not like with an offensive lineman where you can't engage high, can't engage low. Aaron Casey was sort of swiping at his ankles while Parrish was wrapping him up. And to me, the way that rule reads is perfectly fine. And so I thought that was the correct call from the replay center. And it seemed pretty quick, the review. Actually, I'll give them that with both reviews. They were very fast in coming back with both decisions. So I actually thought that was the right call. But it's not like I wasn't holding my breath because I have, on other occasions, felt like I knew what the call was and been proven to be wrong. So that was a stressful minute or two. And then speaking of stressful minutes, let's get into that last drive of the game. So Arbuckle's out. Doege had come in before, made one ill-advised pass, and then got sacked. And here you are sending Jarret Doege out for a game-winning drive. He needed to get 31 yards, we felt, from the broadcast booth to be able to be in borderline field goal range. That would have been 31 yards, would have been a 57-yarder. So we felt like, okay, 31 yards here is probably what he's got to get. And Doege delivered. He hung in the pocket. They blitzed him mercilessly in the first couple plays, and then they just rushed 3 and held everybody back. They were doing everything they could.
World on the first play.
They did, and he got it away somehow.
Yeah,
they ended up getting yardage out of it. I have to give so much credit to Jarret Doege as a backup quarterback. And really, in theory, on this team, he's sort of a third string quarterback because you've got Chad Kelly out there who's getting reps when he's at practice. You've got Nick Arbuckle obviously getting the majority of the reps. Doege's not getting a lot of opportunities in practice these days working with the first team. It just doesn't happen. And so to get in there, not just in a game, you're in there against the team that let you go, your former team, the Edmonton Elks. He hadn't thrown a pass, hadn't taken a snap other than the quarterback sneak with the Toronto Argonauts this season. And he gets sent out there with the game on the line, and he has to produce a field goal drive. And I thought his performance was amazing. He made 2 outstanding throws, ended up 3 of 6. That first pass was on the super blitz where he just got that ball out and completed the pass. The other two were phenomenal throws. There was one to Mackay Polk
nice throws,
where he just got it over, like maybe an inch over the fingertips of the corner.
It looked like it was going to be a pick.
It did. But he had just enough pull on it to drop it in over the corner. And Mackay Polk made a great catch. Like Polk, not that Polk didn't have a quiet game. He ended up with almost 100 yards receiving. But it wasn't one of those like Mackay Polk dominated the day. He had a drop in there that I think he would like back and wasn't necessarily the focal point of the offense most of the day. And yet stepped up in that moment, made that gorgeous catch on the sideline. And then Doege again, a second down, finds Brissett. A play, was it the very next play after missing what could have been called the pass interference play we talked about earlier on Hajrullahu, and it just didn't faze him. He hung in there, delivered a ball, again, just inches over the fingertips, this time of a linebacker who was dropping back into coverage, and Brissett hung on to it for the catch. I just thought that was incredible. Like, what a series of events from a second-string quarterback. Toronto took advantage of the only turnover they created tonight, turned that into an immediate 7 points, and then their backup quarterback came in and delivered a game-winning drive. These things just don't happen a lot. JB, let's get into some of the numbers here, and then we'll pick our plays of the game and our players of the game. So Arbuckle, as I said, 21 of 33, 261, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks. Doege was 3 of 6 for 35 yards, and a very big 35 yards it was. As I said, we thought he needed 31. He was cutting it close. Spencer Brown, 10 carries for 35 yards. Had that one 14-yard run, but not much else was there. Mackay Polk and Jake Hajrullahu, both 10 targets apiece. Polk was 6 catches for 95. He had that one huge play, the 58-yarder. That was his play today, this diving catch that got them into field goal range. And Hajrullahu, only 4 catches on those 10 targets, but they were huge 4 catches. Half of them went for touchdowns. He had 81 yards combined.
The other half of the targets went to the Edmonton Elks.
Yeah, they did. They were turnovers. Not much else from the receiving core. 5 catches for Matal, but only for 22 yards. 4 catches for Brown for 37. 3 catches for Unger, only 15. Brissett had that big 24-yarder at the end, and another 22-yarder earlier in the game for his 2 catches. And then defensively, Brendan Dozier led the team with 7 tackles. And JB, I got my one thing right. I asked for 4 sacks in this game. The Argos came up with 5, and the 5th was that huge scoop and score fumble. So bonus sack, and that is one of the biggest reasons the Argos won. So we got the stats. We've summed it all up. JB, who is your player of the game today?
Yeah, there were a lot of guys that it could have been. I went back and forth between a couple of people. Obviously, like Hajrullahu had 2 touchdowns, but to me, I got to give it to Hajrullahu. He came in and he piped that field goal at the end of the first half. Which I'll talk about, which I thought was really important. And to come on the field and kick that 47-yarder to win the game, it's just a luxury that we shouldn't overlook. He has been absolutely ice cold money his whole time here, and for me, he's what turned this game into a celebration. So I'm giving it to him.
And not only did he have that 47-yard game winner, but he had a 53-yarder at the end of the half. I thought special teams was very strong today. Think about that, the end of the second half.
I'm not going to lie, the whole stadium held their breath on that final kick.
Yeah, where Leak almost got free.
There was a lane open along the rail.
Yeah.
And then it closed, but yeah. No, but I thought pretty good. Like, not lights out, but pretty good special teams coverage.
Well, and I thought Janarian Grant, too, had a decent day. He ended up with 6 punt returns for 105. It's a 17.5 average. He should have been gone, though, on that one. It looked like
be sick.
He just had the kicker,
punter
right?
Tracked him down.
That's all he had left to be. Yeah, and he had room. He had room right, he had room left, and somehow got tripped up by the punter. That one I felt like really should have gone. But you know where he made up for it? The second last play of the half, where Edmonton kind of mismanaged the clock a little bit. They had the ball deep. They ended up taking a 5-yard penalty, which was a brutal penalty. That is one of those game-costing kind of penalties for a delay of game. They moved 5 yards back. Janarian Grant, I think he caught the ball, I want to say it was 7 seconds left. and knew how far he needed to get to give Hajrullahu a shot and knew how much time was left on the clock. Ran out of bounds with 2 seconds left on the clock, a little closer than, or a little less close than Brissett left it with 0.7 2 weeks ago. And that allowed Hajrullahu to come in and kick that 53-yarder. That 3 points ended up being massive. Imagine if Toronto goes in, shut out at the end of the first half, 14-0. Instead, they had some momentum and they got the ball to start the third quarter so they could do that double dip, which they did. JB, my player of the game is going to be a little bit maybe unexpected. I'm going to go with Jarret Doege. And I know he only had 6 passes. He only completed 50% of them, 3 of 6, only 35 yards passing. I'm giving him the player of the game because it is so hard as a backup quarterback to keep yourself ready. I know that's your job, but it's one thing to say it, another thing to do it. You know, here we are in week 15 of the season, and Jarret Doege had not thrown a single pass. And for the last 15 weeks, he's been prepping for every single game. He's been learning the offense. He's been learning the little intricacies about all of his receivers. And here he was suddenly shoved into the game, and it's so unfair as a backup quarterback. The life of a backup quarterback is not fair. You don't get the reps. You don't get to touch the football. You never get to work with the ones. And if the guy in front of you goes down, which happens a lot in football, you're expected to go out there and perform at that level. And he came out today with the game on the line and delivered. So he is going to be my player of the game. We're going a little bit off the board here. The kicker and the backup quarterback, JB, those are our 2 players of the game.
Yeah, well, like it's a bit boring giving it to the obvious people all the time.
Yeah, and I don't even know how, like, and we shout out Hajrullahu. Obviously, he had a good game. McManus always gets a shout out. He played really well, too. Dozier had a heck of a game, too. I think those 2 guys were really big difference makers and contributed, certainly on that last drive, the game-winning field goal. And what is your play of the game, JB?
Well, I wrote it down at the time because I wondered, and, you know, I mean, there are some obvious plays of the game that come up, but for me, just to go a little, I guess as you would call it, hipster, a little off the path, I thought the Dozier sack at the end of the first half to prevent Edmonton from killing the clock, and that gave Toronto a chance to kick that field goal. I thought that was huge. I thought I thought scoring points was so necessary at the end of that half. It had been, you had the 2 third down, you know, fubars and, you know, some mistakes, and it just really was a terrible half in every way. I don't know, just coming off the bye, they just didn't seem dialed in, which is quite unusual for them. And he came through, and I thought it was a real momentum changer for the Argos, and they were kind of shot out of a cannon after that.
That was a huge play. And again, a 3-point play, essentially, in a 1-point game is obviously big. I'm going to go with the more obvious choice because I think one of us needs to there if you're going back to the second quarter. I'm going to say the Chatfield scoop and score. Like, that is the biggest play of the game. It was such a shift. It went from Edmonton had the ball. They're looking to put this one out of reach. They're already up by 6. And instead, it goes the other way for 7. And the Argos are playing with the lead. And I know they gave it up late, but it was a whole different ball game there, and obviously they were able to go down and cash in that final drive for a score. So to me, the forced fumble by Derek Parrish, the recovery and score by Andrew Chatfield, that was my play of the game. Before we sign off, JB, this game was a little heated at the end. The benches sort of cleared after the final whistle. It looked like Coach Dinwiddie was shouting at somebody on the Edmonton bench. There was a lot of shouting back and forth. There was pushing and shoving between players as Kevin Mittal tried to back Coach Dinwiddie away from the situation. You know, some guys hugging each other. There's like 14 former Argos on the Elks, so there was a lot of like greeting and, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. But there's also some tension. What did you make of that little skirmish at the end of this one?
Well, Edmonton, of course, was super angry that they threw away this game. I mean, Toronto had no right winning this game. They had 6 turnovers. I mean, Edmonton has to feel sick to their stomach that they lost this game, you know, with the number of turnovers, with the third quarterback coming in and making that final drive. I can't imagine that there weren't some people that were pretty hot about that game falling apart. It just didn't feel like a game they were going to lose. So, you know, I would imagine that was some of that vibe in there.
And now Argos fans are going to have to turn their attention to Saskatchewan and Montreal, because here's the scenario. Montreal is in Saskatchewan tonight. They're just getting set for kickoff in a few minutes' time. And if Saskatchewan can win, and they're heavy favorites in this game, if they can beat the Montreal Alouettes, then Toronto will be in a tie for second place in the East Division with a game coming up this coming Friday against those same Alouettes at BMO Field. And so your task, Argos fans, is you got to get down to BMO Field Friday night. It is going to be nuts in here. It's a 7 o'clock start Friday night. I think the guys from Overdrive are going to be at the game as well. It's going to be a pretty intense vibe, I think. And Montreal will be playing for their playoff lives at that point, because third place in the East is almost out of reach now. That's the irony. Second place is attainable. The Argos would be one win away from second place, being a game up on the Alouettes, and maybe even thinking about where Hamilton is at that point. But a loss against Montreal would pretty much mean now we got to chase the BC Lions for third, which is not an easy task after their win last night. So this is a massive one coming up Friday night, September 19th, 7 o'clock at BMO Field. Well, that will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.